Yeah. Is it okay for you? Is it clear now?
It's fine now.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's
Thank
good
you.
now.
Yes. Thanks.
Can you share your screen as well? Thank you.
I'll explain today. I'm explaining to you, and I'll give you some running notes kind of stuff. You please make a note of it. And tomorrow onwards, I'll share the screen. No problem. I'll give you some running notes to you. Okay. Fine. Okay. So let's start. Right. So what is that we have discussed in the previous session about SDLC process, like software development lifecycle process. So in the software development lifecycle process, we have discussed about the analysis phase, followed by analysis phase. The next is about planning and design, implementation, testing, deployment, delivery, followed by maintenance. So these are the phases of application development as what we have discussed in the previous session. Now, when we talk about the stages of SDLC, analysis, planning and design, implementation, testing, deployment, followed by the delivery. So these are the different phases of SDLC we have. In the analysis phase, we try to understand the business problem. What is the business problem and all, everything will be analyzed by us. Followed by the analysis phase. The next we call it as planning and design. Am I audible to everyone, right? Am I audible to everyone, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Right, so analysis phase. When it comes to the planning and design, where project management team, all these people will be involved in project management, planning, all that. At the same time, architects are the people who develop architecture for the solution. What is that you are developing? Followed by the architecture, the next is translating requirements and all, everything into a documentation format is what generally will be done by the business analyst, the business analyst and all that in the phase of planning and design. Next, when it comes to the implementation, here developers will write coding for the project. Whatever the code and all, everything will be written by the developers here. At the same time, user interface designers will develop even user interface designings as well. So once the user interface designing done, the next we call it as in testing part, where in this testing we try to understand what are the different testing phases we have. All that stuff will be discussed here. So wherein testing is the kind of phase where we do the different types of testing, like manual testing, automation testing, all that. So after this, deployment and delivery, where we have to deploy the application and show to the customer. So once customer is accepted, we go to the next level. This is what generally deployment and delivery is all about. So, and followed by this maintenance. So these are the stages of software development lifecycle. So once software development lifecycle stages were completed, now you're going to discuss about the models of SDLC and why are these models for so important for any application development. This is what we must be learning first. So developing the right development lifecycle model for any of the projects is required. Why? Because customers will be of different mindsets. Customer will be of different perceptions, all that. For example, when you are trying to understand or when you're trying to develop any kind of application in a process of project development, some customers want you to deliver project in the time what we have planned. Because as it is a human intervention which is connecting some with technology, so usually it takes some amount of time for us to complete the project. So usually some customers will accept that and we move further. But whereas when it comes to few other these things, where here customer will try to understand the kind of business problem what they have, and based upon their business conditions, based upon their market conditions, they want us to develop the project and send us as earliest. Means that is what generally the phase wise all about. This is where generally the SDLC models comes into picture. So what is that are we going to discuss now is what we call it as SDLC. What is that are we going to discuss now is what we call it as SDLC. So SDS, I'm texting on the chat box, no worries. SDLC models is what are we texting now? I'm not sharing the screen today. I'm just texting on the chat box so that you can see what are all the points, because there are few points which is to be discussed with. So that is what I'm doing now. Okay. So now the first one we call it as SDLC models. When we talk about SDLC models, the first model we call it as waterfall model. The first model we call it as waterfall model. Second will be called as V model. If you want, you can make a note of it. Okay. So meanwhile, please don't text anything on the chat box so that people will miss anything in between. Okay. Hence, please don't text anything on the chat box. So the first model we call it as waterfall model. Second, we call it as incremental model, V model. Third, we call it as incremental model. Fourth, we call it as iterative model. And fifth, we call it as agile model or agile methodology. So these are the different models of application development we have. So one is waterfall, second is V model, third is incremental, fourth iterative, followed by the agile models. So these are the models of application development as and when we need to know first. Now, what is meant by waterfall model? Why is it used? Why is it being used, and for what reason? Now, waterfall is a kind of model which is traditional on its size. I'm writing on the chat box, you can see even. Waterfall model is a traditional model which is being used for a very long time. It's used for very long time. So whatever the phases of SDLC we have discussed, like analysis, planning, design, implementation, testing, right? So whatever the phases we have discussed so far in the earlier sessions and all these will happen one by one. Means once the analysis phase completed, you're going for planning and design. Once the planning and design is completed, you're going for implementation. Once the implementation done, you're going for deployment, delivery, followed by maintenance. This is what generally we do in reference to waterfall model is concerned. So the advantage in waterfall model is we do analysis first, followed by this you're going for planning and design. After that, you're going for implementation, followed by testing, followed by deployment and delivery. So these are the major phases of application development you see. But when it comes to the changes you want to make, let's say, for example, there is a customer who is expecting to make some changes out of it. Then how you are going to manage this? Is it possible? Is it feasible for us to manage? If it was the case, yes, was the case. And how you are going to manage is what the first and foremost question which must be understood to us. Now, especially in reference to the waterfall model, this is a kind of model, as I told you, if you want any kind of changes to be made in the phase of design phase, assume that, for example, because now you are working on implementation phase. Now you want to make any kind of design level changes and all everything if you want to make. The disadvantage for you is that you have to go back. You have to go back and do the necessary changes on the design. Once it is completed, you have to deliver it to the customer. That's what generally we see in reference to the waterfall model is. So what will happen now? Because of this, whatever the work, whatever the amount of time we have spent of working for any of the projects and all everything will be increased a lot, right? So the amount of effort is increasing. When the effort is increasing, automatically the cost will also get increased. So whatever the return we are getting and whatever are we using and all everything, will have a difference here. So there are possibilities that these sort of differences you can see in reference to waterfall model is all about. So when you talk about waterfall model, it's a slanting model percentage where whatever the analysis phase followed by planning and design, followed by implementation, followed by testing, deployment, delivery, everything will happen one after another. But the major disadvantage, what is that we do is, what is that the major disadvantage, what is that we see here is, whatever the changes you want to make in the existing ones is not possible for us to do the changes for whatsoever reason. This is the first and foremost practical problem which we need to face, right? So this is the thing. So when it is useful to you, when customer is ensuring you that no changes in requirements taken place, if that was the situation, this model is highly successful and useful. This model is highly successful and useful when customer is expecting you to make any kind of changes in the existing ones. If customer is not doing that, right? If customer is not doing that, so what will happen automatically? If customer is not doing that, what? If customer is not doing that, what will happen automatically? The amount of time you are spending and all everything will be more higher. So whatever the timelines we are spending, whatever the work we are doing and all everything will be more higher in percentage. So cost and effort and all everything will be more, but make sure customer has to ensure us that no changes in requirements taken place. So whenever customer has given you this assurance, this waterfall model is something essentially applicable, essentially useful to us. This is the first model. Now the second model we call it as V model. So V model stands for verification and validation model. V model stands for verification and validation model. Now what verification and validation model is? Verification and validation model nothing but whatever the work you are going to do, this work we are doing one after another. Means we are doing verification phase first, then we are going for validation phase in the next level. Means we are trying to implement the verification phase first, followed by this validation phase next. This is what, as I already told you, today I'm not sharing any kind of slide. I'm sharing only my mobile due to some personal reasons. I couldn't do it. I'm texting on the chat box when I'm explaining. That's what. Okay, please. Tomorrow I'll do it. Okay, fine. So verification and validation model is all about. So when we talk about verification and validation model, this verification and validation model is what majorly focuses on two different things. One is verification, second is validation. So what is verification and validation? Verification means development phase. Validation means testing phase. Now, usually if you see waterfall model, what will happen? First implementation will be taking place, means we'll write the code, everything. So once the code was written and all, testing will be done accordingly. This is how generally the structure and the process generally we follow. But whereas when it comes to the verification and V model, when it comes to the V model, verification and validation model, yeah. So there is the session was under recording, so I think you can go through the class recording last time. I think you might have known to you this Vishnu. Okay, so the SDLC models I am discussing now. I am not completed it. I am discussing in today's session. That's what I want to say. Okay, so verification and validation means both implementation and validation phase is what happens here. Normally in traditional model, what we do, implementation of the project will be done by us. Once the project implementation done, what is that we do is, what is that? So when we talk about when we talk about waterfall model, implementation will be done. So based on the testing will be done. That's what generally we don't know. We do it. But whereas when it comes to the V model, as verification and validation, as we talk about, both implementation as well as testing, both means both verification followed by the validation happens sequentially. Means you are implementing followed by implementation, testing will also be done by you parallelly. So whenever you are doing these two parallelly, the advantage for you is that the amount of time you are spending to complete the work and all everything will get reduced because of that. This is what generally verification and validation stands for. So verification model, where you are implementing the development part. At the same time, whatever the development we are doing, parallelly we are trying to do the testing even. So both implementation followed by the testing, we are doing it parallel. This is what generally V model stands for, verification and validation model. So in this verification and validation model, the advantage for us is whatever the timeline in reference to the project development we are taking, the timelines will get reduced. We don't require more timelines to develop the work. We don't require more timelines for us to implement any kind of tasks or something of that sort. Why? Because the reason is both implementation, testing, we are doing it parallelly. So you don't require any testing as separate. Either it may be a manual testing process or it may be an automation testing process. You don't require to do any kind of testing again and again. Normally testing, as you know, there will be of two phases. So one is about manual testing, second is an automation testing. When we talk about manual testing, manual process, I want to say. Manual process means there is a manual procedure we follow by preparing some test cases, test plans and all everything by the testing team. So that's all completely relating to document part. You don't require any, they don't do any tools or something like, they don't use any tools. But whereas when it comes to the implementation, when it comes to what we call when it comes to the implementation of the project itself is concerned, when they want to do the testing and all that, automation testing comes into picture. Either it may be Selenium, Silk, WinRunner, LoadRunner. All these things will be used to do the testing of any of the project. So these are the phases of application. What you see, especially in reference to V model is. So waterfall is a traditional one. Don't see any differences in that. But make sure customer is changing any requirements. Again, you have to go back and do it, which requires a lot of cost, effort, money, everything. Second is automation. Second is V model, stands for verification and validation model. In this verification and validation model, both implementation followed by testing you are doing parallelly. Hence, the amount of time you are spending to complete the project and all everything will be reduced. This is what generally V model stands for, verification and validation model. So in reference to what we called in reference to the waterfall model, it is simple to use, but changes, if you are expecting anything, it would be difficult. V model, when customer is expecting you to complete the models and all everything of SDLCs, you can do as many changes you want and all everything here. Now, right now, yeah, as far as disadvantages of V model, let's say, for example, when we talk about, is there any kind of disadvantages in V model? The V model major disadvantage is if there is any changes which usually occurs in middle of the project, That would be a challenge for us. We can't do the changes later on. That was the one more challenge where you can see here. Understood? Clear, right? So major problem is you don't have any kind of facility where you don't want to means if you don't have a facility where you don't, if you want to make any kind of changes in the existing ones, B model is not even feasible. Why? Because both implementation testing you're doing parallelly. Again, if you want to make any changes on to that existing ones and all everything next level, so that it requires a lot of confusion over the team, especially confusion will be laid majorly on the team members, because confusion is for the team people. So team people should not be confused for whatsoever reason, but unfortunately the problem is team members will be confused here. This is the next level. Now, when we talk about the third model, we call it as incremental model. Incremental model. This was the third model. You can see incremental. Incremental means we add new increments in each and every phase of the project. That's what generally we call it as incremental model is. In this incremental model, what is that you're doing? You're adding some new increments into the existing stuff. This is what generally we call it as incremental model is. So it means you want to add some new increments into the existing thing. Let's say I'll tell you the real example of incremental model. In a small note, I can say this, right? So in a small note, I can say this. The small note is as follows. For example, we are creating a login page, right? So when we have created a login page, customer has asked us to create a login page followed by this user ID and password. This is what customer has told. Now we have agreed, we have done that as well. Now, all of a sudden, customer wants us to add some new second level verification process for the password. What is second level verification process? Second level verification process means the first level verification process is done. Second level verification process means in the second level verification process, you're trying to understand what exactly it was and why it was. That's what generally verification incremental means security related issues. We want you to implement the second login procedure. So when you talk about second login procedure, what will happen? What will happen when we are doing it? Automatically, the login process will be going on to the next level. Right? So it is going to the next level. So when it is going to the next level, what will happen? Automatically, the amount of time, what is that you are spending, right? And all everything will be doubled. But at the same time, there is a difference where you see in incremental model is whatever the changes customer is asking that second level verification process that you're doing on the next level. So in the first phase, what is that you're doing in the first increment? You have created login page where to that extension, if they require any second level user ID, second level password, any security password or something, if customer want us to add something, we can always have an option that we can add it there, here. This is what generally the second one is all about. So the first one is waterfall model, second V model, third incremental model. Means when customer is asking us, when customer wants you to add some new increments into the existing ones, there must be an always provision to do that. The provision is what we do using this incremental model. Means you're adding some new increments into the existing stuff. That is what generally we do. Now, Last one but not least, of course, Agile, we discussed it after some time. But before I'm going to discuss about Agile, there is one more model called iterative model or iterative process. So before I'm going into iterative process, there is a question here. If the waterfall method takes more time and resources, why do still wants to use it anyway? See, this is a valid question, I'll tell you. See, waterfall model still people are adopting because of the transparency what they see while they are working on application development. Even though waterfall model still underline we are using it, because even though we have nowadays we were using Agile, all that stuff, but still we are going back and we are using Agile, waterfall, all that we are doing it. But still, why are we doing this? Because there are some disadvantages here. So some disadvantages is that exclusive waterfall model will be more expensive when there is any kind of challenges and requirements taken place in this. That is what generally becomes under what we call that's what we comes under that's what we also comes under waterfall model. Means there are more challenges we have. Those challenges and all everything, but something similar and those challenges and all everything will be discussed when we are working on or when we are talking about what we call when we are talking about implementation of the project. So it will become more expensive day by day if you are managing it and if you are continuing it this to the next level. That is the reason why waterfall model importance is, even though we have 100% we don't follow. That's the reason why even Agile we follow, we say Agile, 100% we don't follow Agile. Agile in combination to waterfall is what we do. That's how and that's what we do. That's how the process will follow. Now, when it comes to the iterative model, let me explain you about the iterative model. Then I'll go for I'll go for spiral, RUP, Agile, and all everything in second session, not in today's session. I'll tell you, because spiral model is also similar like a traditional approach, but RUP is all something nowadays we are adopting in the phase of Agile development. RUP stands for Rational Unified Process. So when I'm explaining about Agile, these are the similarities. So where those similarities and all that, so spiral RUP followed by the Agile combination will be explained to you there, right? So that will be there. That will be explained there itself. So the waterfall model we have discussed so far, right? So second is about V model. Third, we call it as incremental model. Fourth model, we call it as iterative model. What is iterative model? More than iterative model, I would say iterative approach. What is iterative approach stands for? Iterative approach, nothing but whatever the work are we going to do, whatever the task are we performing now. Sometimes customer will ask us to develop some prototypes. For example, you're creating a website. When you are creating a website, sometimes customer will ask you, I want some prototype first. Prototype means how the page looks like, color combinations, all these. Right? That's what generally first customer wants. So customer wants you to do it first, wants you to design and all everything first. Once that is done, the next everything is clear. That you don't see any difficulty in it. But the practical problem is you don't see this sort of prototype designing and all everything for every project. But for few projects, what customers say is, first you develop the prototype, show us. If the prototype is fine, we are most welcome, so that you can go to the next level. That's what generally people say. So when we talk about, so there is when we talk about iterative model or moreover iterative model, apart from that, I would say iterative approach. When we are talking about iterative approach, where we are developing some prototypes and all everything into the existing ones. That is what generally we call it as iterative approach stands for. So incremental model has its own increments which is to be added into the existing one. Whereas when it comes to iterative and all everything, here in this we are developing some prototypes. Whatever the prototypes do we require and all everything, the prototype developments and all everything will be done later. That's what generally means. Sometimes we create some prototypes or some demo project kind of stuff and all. We show to the customer. As long as customer is not accepted, we don't go to the next level. That's how the structure we build in iterative. But whereas in incremental, it's not that. You're adding new increments into the existing ones. That was the reason why incremental and iterative, more than approaches and all, I would say, models, I would say, these two are approaches. Incremental approach followed by iterative approach. So this is the right word to say. Incremental and iterative are the two different approaches which you have to see here. Right. So this is one thing which we must be understood here. Right. So in this iterative approach, as I told you, we develop some prototype, we give it to the customer. As long as customer is not accepted, we don't go to the next level. These are the traditional models which we were using for very long time. Now we need to discuss about agile model. Right? We need to discuss about agile model. Yeah, as far as the present scenarios itself is concerned, if you see closely, like incremental model, more or less we are using. That's the reason why more than incremental, I said, incremental approach, I said. More than incremental model, I said. It is always better to say it as an incremental approach. Incremental approach means we are adding some new increments and all everything to the existing ones. That's what generally we call it as incremental approach transfer. Means we are adding some new approaches into the existing ones. This is what we call it as incremental approach is all about, right? So incremental approach, iterative approach, incremental approach. This is how generally the process will be followed by us. Now, how this waterfall and V model were connected? This is the next question before I'm getting into agile and all. So how it is, how and what way waterfall and as well as V model were connected. To be honest with you, both are having its own structural comparisons. You can see the structural comparisons, you never see any difference. But when it comes to the approach, is the difference. Because in waterfall model, whatever that we are going to develop, whatever we are developing in waterfall model, we are developing one after another. But V model, you are doing it parallelly. The same work you are doing parallelly just because you want to reduce the whatever you called, you want to reduce the complexity of the work and all everything, you want to reduce, hence you are doing it. That's only the major difference wherein you see from that to this. This is what generally we have to see here. Now, when it comes to the prototype, when you talk about prototype nothing but simply I can say in simple words called dummy project or demo project. Let us say, for example, a customer wants an e-commerce portal to be designed. When a customer wants us to develop an e-commerce portal, what is that they require first? First of all, how the page looks like, grandeur, user experience, user interfaces. This is what generally we do. So prototype, more or less, I can say, prototype is something similar like demo project, something similar like demo project, right? So this is what generally we call it as prototype stands for. Means in this prototype, what is that we do? We are developing some prototypes and all everything. So these prototypes and all everything, it's something like it's a kind of demo project kind of stuff. where you are developing some how the grandeur looks like, color combinations, approaches, everything will be designed using it. So once everything is done, so that will be shown to the development team. Sorry, that will be shown to the client and all. If client is accepted, we go to the next level. That is what usually we do in reference to the prototypes and all everything, where we are using this iterative and all everything will be used for that reason. Okay. Now, yes, I can say like it is more or less something like a soft copy or for an original one. Yes, to an extent, whatever you said to an extent possible, right? Not to the full extent. So to some extent and all, whatever you said is right. More or less something like a soft, some demo copy of an original. Because normally when it happen, I'll tell you this incremental approach. I'll tell you one more reason. Let's say, for example, customer has identified uh, three different vendors. Three different vendors were qualified technically and financially. Now they want to choose one among three. The best among three is what they have to see. What they have to do now, first of all, they have to see who are right and who are capable and who are not capable. Capable in terms of reaching their expectations. So for that reaching their expectation, because even though they are technically strong, even though they are technically qualified, but end of the day, customer has a choice that they want to choose any one in this among three. So when we talk about any one among three, here what is that we require here? What is that we require here is that we have to choose any one person among these three persons, among these three. So when we talk about among three, what is the first thing? What is that we have to do is we need to identify few more things and all everything into the existing ones, right? So we'll ask people to develop some prototypes, some user experience, grandeur, all that. We'll ask them to show. So we'll see the color combinations, all that. Now, whoever's the demo project or prototype is more or less something similar like the expectation, whatever we have. So project will be given to them actually. That's what generally we do in reference to what we call in reference to what we call in reference to the prototypes, all that is concerned, right? So this is what it is. Yeah. So normally I can say semi-finished because normally there is a concept called phase-wise implementation. That's what generally we see in release, especially when we are talking about agile. When I start about agile, of course, I'll tell you. Whenever we are working on agile and all, this is where matters. Normally in agile environment, we do the release part, right? Well, first of all, we'll do the release. Based upon the release, whatever they require, based on that implementation will be taken next. That's how generally the process will be followed by us here. So this is what generally release transfer, right? Releases and all, release one, release two and all. So why are we adopting agile practices? Because of this reason. Because you never know when customer is expecting what, right? Sometimes you're developing a whole e-commerce portal. Sometimes customer don't want everything. Now, what is the common understanding between you and customer? You ask the customer, then do one thing. What is required for you? You let me know first. So I'll be developing it and I'll delivering it to you. That's what the common understanding will come between you and as well as the customer. Will you agree? Yes or no? Right? This is what we do. So why are we doing it? Because the advantage here is that why are we doing it? The advantage is we are doing it parallelly, right? So we are doing it parallelly. Means what is customer needed? So that will be completed and we are delivering it. So customer satisfaction with utmost quality deliverable is what is possible in agile. Whereas if you follow the traditional way of approaches, 100%, you may not be getting based upon the present condition of the market and all everything. You cannot 100% you cannot relate yourself. So that is the major challenge and the disadvantage what you get. But if that was the case, you could ask me one thing, Raj, is that 100% agile we are using nowadays? No. 100% agile also not possible, because assume that your team is not experienced in implementing agile methods. So then there is no point of use. So 100% agile implementation may not be possible all the times to do that. So this is also one more difficulty and the challenge what we have to see here. So this is what generally we have to see when it comes to this, right? So these are the differences. So here, what is that we do? We follow both combinations. We follow agile, followed by traditional model combinations will be used here. So what is that is happening here? Both implementation as well as both traditional model followed by agile combinations we are working, so that we are completing the project and all everything on time with all the required deliverables. This is how generally the process we are following for a very long time, right? See, agile is very simple. Agile model, of course, I have not started agile yet, which I am going to start tomorrow, the detailed part of it. But in one line of answer, which I must tell you, which if I want to give, in one line of answer, what is that I am giving to you is, agile is nothing but what is required for the customer within a limited period of time to complete and given with expected quality followed by expected deliverable date. That's what generally agile is. Means according to the situation, changing our pattern of application development and making customer happy with quality deliverables on time is what generally agile is being used for. Is it clear to everyone? Is it clear or not? Right. So agile is all.
Raj, can you
So agile, of course, yeah, right. So agile is what that. But of course, if you want to implement agile, there are some values and principles, practices. We need to discuss about Scrum. At the same time, we need to discuss about the different frameworks like Scrum. Maybe RUP is one part of it, right? Rational Unified Process, all that. So that is the next level. Right? That is anyway, that's the next level. There we need to discuss it in coming days. Clear? So this is all for today. Of course, please excuse me. I cannot. I'm not continuing more than this today. So this is what I would like to cover for today's session. This is what I have covered. So agile part I will start from tomorrow, and we go as usual. See, agile and waterfall combination very simple. You are new to agile. You are experienced in waterfall. At end of the day, we need to combine agile and waterfall and make work stand. End of the day, you should not feel confused. At the same time, we should not feel that agile implementation should not be started. So we have to use both combinations when it is required. And I'll tell you the example when I'm explaining about agile, you will be knowing it well. Yeah, waterfall model actually. So iterative is completely, see, iterative nothing but prototype designing, simple. You develop some prototype, give it to the customer. Customer will ask us the changes. As long as customer is not expecting us to do the changes and all that, we don't go to the next step. That's what generally waterfall is, iterative is all about. Now, isn't it waterfall model almost the same? We can change it. Customer demand just takes time. It's not only time, it's effort, money, everything will be doubled. That's not practically possible. At the same time, we are not doing as per the requirement, we are not delivering it. That is one more challenge you can see, especially in reference to the agile and all. You have the choice. That is the difference you can see here. Customer demand requires new iterations to add or change the existing design. Okay. Basically, what are the jobs given to the BA? See, you need to understand the model, what kind of model are suitable for the present project as per the client needs. Of course, even whatever the budget are we taking and what expertise team is having, all these things will also matter. So that is what we have to focus for. Understood? Clear? What are the jobs will be given to BA means there is no job separate. Not the responsibility. I don't say it's a business analyst, it's a job. Responsibility sometimes it will be added to the next level. Means knowing about the process of application development followed by which model is suitable, because you will be interacting with technical people, you will be interacting with project management, with team, technical team and that. So you must be knowing about all this. So there is no specific BA used this model, right? So business analyst is not using it. End of the day, for the whole application development, you're doing it, not by the BA. Knowing about these things is required. That's what the point is. Okay. Sometimes different models will also be used as a combination. That also will happen sometimes. See, SDLC stages means analysis, planning, design, implementation, testing, deployment, delivery, maintenance, all that. When you talk about SDLC models, this waterfall, V model, incremental, iterative, agile, all that. See, business different analyst followed by systems analyst difference is very simple. Business analyst is the person who takes care of business requirements, confined majorly to that. Business systems analyst means knowing about the system knowledge, system performance, knowing about something detailed about the system needs and all everything. Depends on the kind of requirement on the profile, what customer is expecting. Some more system requirements and all everything should be known to you well in advance. That's what we call it as systems analyst role. That's only the difference. So otherwise, everything is. I hope you guys have understood what is that I said. Right. So we discuss tomorrow about agile part, why agile, for what reason, all that. Tomorrow. See, there is no business data analyst, only data analyst or a business analyst. Data analyst job is different. Data analyst job is to manage the data. Right, so manage the data, right? So customer perception. If you would like to know about the perception of the customer, taking some data and doing some data analysis tools like Tableau, Power BI, or it may be Python, right? So different R programming, all these things used by the data analyst. That's what business analyst is completely into business requirements. So normally, as I'm planning, this is the 4-week session. So once it is done, then you can speak. Yes, stages are different. SDLC stages is one. Once the SDLC stages, we have discussed about models. That is different. So 2 different things. Iterative model is very simple. Iterative model means prototype. Yes, I'll take a scenario and I'll show you a project to you. A demo project kind of stuff I'll show you, especially in the field of Jira, in agile environment. At the same time on this thing also. So you'll be, yes, scenario based, yes, we'll be getting it. Yeah, that's what. So it depends on the budget, depends on the expertise, depends on the need. Which model is really suitable is what we plan based on it. That's what the point. See, this is a training program for business analyst in reference to the healthcare event, right? So once the training is finished, you need to prepare yourself for job and all, and whatever the next level process and all everything, that consulting people will be looking after all that stuff for you. So they will answer all your queries. Okay, that's what it's. Right. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and we'll meet again tomorrow and we discuss more further on this. Okay then. So tomorrow you're discussing about agile part. Okay then. Thank you. Bye.